I walk within a lot of different worlds. I've got friends who make YouTube videos. I know people in the designer toy world, in the vintage toy world. I work in film and TV from time to time. I've got friends in music. Over the years, I've met lots and lots of different people. And when you work in all them creative fields, you always meet folk that are like, oh, I've got this idea that I want to do. I've got this project that I'm putting forward. I'm writing this script. I'm working on this album. I'm creating this toy line, this clothing line. And as much as I love hearing about people's different ideas and their tenacity to want to create something, quite often you find that a lot of these people don't do anything. It's a shame to say, but you do meet a lot of people that have all these ideas, but they never actually put any of them into motion, or they start doing it and never finish it. I'm one of them myself. I've got projects, no doubt, that I've talked about on this channel that are still not finished yet. I've got a movie that's like very nearly finished and I've still got to do some ADR on it and some visual effects and stuff, and it's just sat there waiting to be done. And sometimes these projects, for whatever reason, don't get finished. But I met a guy a couple of years ago who was just somebody that I saw on Facebook promoting a thing, and he's now a good friend of mine. I would like to call him a good friend. And he's definitely not one of those people, because he's been dreaming about putting this project forward that I'm going to talk about today for many, many years. And he's finally finished it. And not only is it finished, but it's now out in stores and people can go out and buy it. And that's these things. So these are the 9 to 5 Warriors. This is something that was created by my friend Brandon Braswell. Like I said, I met him a couple of years ago. Just saw him posting about this project on different Facebook groups and really liked the look of it. I got him on the channel. We did a bit of a channel chat kind of thing, a bit of a podcast, a bit of an interview, just talking a bit more about the toy line that he wanted to put out. And this is something that he's been wanting to create since he was a little kid. Very much like my Mandroid figure that I created at Christmas, something that I remade, that I made from when I was a little child. He made this when he was a little kid. He got an eraser, he stuck a drawing pin in its eye, he drew a face on it and he called it Major Eraser. And all these years later, he's now created a whole action figure line all around that idea. Now, I mentioned in the last video that I did that these really deserve their own episode. So that's what I'm gonna do today. Have a proper good look at these things, because I was probably the first person in England to get a set. I don't know about now, but certainly when these got delivered like a month ago, I was certainly the first person to have a set in England then, because there was only like 4 sets available. This is before they got distributed into shops. And as I said, they are actually available to buy in shops now. So yeah, we're just gonna have a proper good look at them, and I'm gonna take you along for the journey and yeah, bring you in, see what you think. Let's do this. So today we've got 4 characters to take a look at, and as I said, these are all figures that are available to buy right now. I will be removing them from their packaging in this video, but before I take them out, I wanted to show some love to the artist Turbo Poke, who did all of the artwork on these cards and absolutely smashed it. Quite often when there's an independent release like this, to save money, they're forced to use the same card for all of the figures, but in this case, Brandon gave each of them their own individual one, and it definitely didn't go unnoticed and really shows how legit they are. As I mentioned, Brandon, the creator of these guys, went on quite the journey to get them made. From being something that he invented as a child and then started trying to conceive as an actual toy line around 10 years ago, he's since then had to jump through so many hoops to get these guys created. And it seemed like it were only recently that there was a Kickstarter for these guys that unfortunately didn't hit its goal, leading most of us to believe that they were never going to get made. So by all accounts, these are a toy line that shouldn't even exist, but they do now, and I'm fully strapped in for it. Now, as I said, myself and Brandon did do a channel chat about a year ago or 2 years, I forget. I'll link it down in the comments below. But since then, I've followed his journey, we've stayed in touch, speaking constantly, and I was even lucky enough to produce a bit of official artwork for the line, which was definitely a career highlight for me, because if it wasn't clear already, I'm a big fan of these boys, and I'm really excited to be able to showcase them for you today in this episode. So being a vintage toy collector, it always feels kind of wrong to me opening toys. And I know these are new toys, but even when I get a new toy, it feels weird opening it. And it's just because it's like an irreversible thing. Once you've opened a toy, then that's it. It's like a decision that once you've made it, that's it. There's no going back. And when it comes to vintage toys, I've discussed it on the channel before. I'm 50-50. I think some toys it's fine to open. Other toys, I feel like it's our duty to keep in the packaging, just because there's so many loose ones out there and they're rare. And it never comes from a place of like, oh, because I know they're worth money, so I want to keep them mint in the box. It just comes from a place of like, yeah, I feel like it's up to us to look after this stuff and not everything needs opening. But these, obviously, I'm going to open today because I want to give them a proper review and have a proper look at them. So I'm going to try something that I've done before, where you take a heat gun and you heat up the glue around the edges and it just loosens the bubble away from the card. It doesn't always work, it's not guaranteed, but obviously it has less potential to damage them than if I just tore them straight off the bubble. And I don't want to do that. I want to keep these cards nice. So yeah, we'll give that a whirl. and we'll see how we get on. So it kind of worked, kind of didn't, using the heat gun. There's somewhere like one side came up really nice and then others where it just kind of ripped. But none of them completely damaged the artwork and stuff, which is what I was most concerned about. So that's cool. Like, look at the top bit here. This come right off with no problems, but then down the sides, it tore. But yeah, none of the artwork got damaged. And I don't know why I'm being so precious. It's just my own little weird, like, habits with collecting and stuff like that. But what I'm more concerned about now is actually checking out the loose figures, because they're looking incredible. This is the first time that I'm seeing them with my own eyes. I can only imagine what Brandon felt like when he first held them in his hands for the first time, because me seeing them now, having like a slight little bit of involvement in not even their production, just their promotion after they were made, is really, really awesome to see. I'm looking forward now to sitting down, proper analysing them, and really talking about why I think they're so special.
So the 4 figures that are currently available are split into 2 different factions. The Water Cooler Commandos, aka the good guys, and their sworn enemies, the Break Room Bandits. So first off, we'll take a look at the bad guys, starting off with this dude, Commodore Crisps, who is without doubt one of my favourites, just because of how ingenious the idea behind him is. So he's basically a stack of Pringles style crisps, with his most defining feature being that it can either be displayed on his own or split into 3 separate characters, which I think is such a clever design because it really makes use of that classic Pringles stacking feature, but also means that you're kind of getting 3 figures in one. In the storyline for these toys as well, he's also the communications guy for his team, with him being able to be in so many different places at once. But because of this, every time he does split himself into separates, his brain becomes more confused and scrambled, which I think gives him a really funny little flawed character trait and a great trade-off for him being able to do something that none of the others can. Then we've got Colonel Custard, mutant killer donut leader of the Break Room Bandits gang, another junk food themed character and probably the most vibrant of all the releases so far. He comes with a removable cape and an old coffee lid shield, and in my opinion wouldn't look out of place on a shelf mixed in amongst any vintage toy line. I also really like how his face takes up the majority of his body. I don't know why, but I always love this look, and I think overall he's got a great presence and he's the perfect character to spearhead the war against the Water Cooler Commandos. So moving on to the heroes next, first off we've got Tech Sergeant Scotchy. In every team like this you always need a tech guy, and this is the dude that takes that role here for the good guys. I must admit, when I first saw this character, I thought he felt very different to the others. Having more of a human face, I thought that it didn't really fit in that well, but now having him in hand, I genuinely think he's a great addition to the set. He's also the only one, so far at least, that has a sort of action feature, another very ingenious design where you can warm him up, pull his arms and his legs off and remove his head, and actually fit a roll of tape inside him, so that you can have him hanging off stuff or abseiling down things, which I honestly think is such an incredible feature, and I don't know why nobody's ever thought of it before. And finally, finishing off the characters in the first wave, we have the Water Cooler Commandos leader, Brandon's childhood creation brought to life, and the character that started this whole crazy toy line, Major Eraser. To me, this guy just screams iconic. You could have told me that this character was from an old cartoon that had existed in the 80s and had somehow passed me by, and I wouldn't have batted an eyelid. I know the same can be said for all of these characters, but this one in particular for me just hits the nail on the head, or in this case, the thumbtack in the eyeball. There's also something about the way that this guy's face is sculpted that makes him look like he came straight out of an Aardman animation, yet he's still very much his own thing. And I know from experience, when I was trying to draw this character and sketch him out and get him right for that little bit of promo work that I did on the line, we did a lot of back and forth trying to find one that Brandon was happy with and that he felt best represented the expression of the character, and I honestly think that's just down to how distinctive a look that this guy has. Now, even though they are all pretty different individually, as a collective they all definitely complement each other very well. The weapons and accessories are also really cool too, all being made from various office supplies or things that you would find in an office bin. They're also kinda like 1.1 scale with the real thing in most cases as well, which not only makes them that bit more charming in my opinion, but also makes it very easy to create set pieces for them, like the one that I quickly created for this very video. I also feel it's important for me to put across that just because these are an independent toy line, they're not homemade or hand cast like we do when we make Turgo figures. These are all toys that are made in an actual factory. They look and feel like mass-produced figures because that's what they are. Obviously, low-run mass-produced figures, there's only a certain number of these available right now, but if you buy one of these, you're getting an actual authentic toy, and one that I personally feel is an awesome addition to any vintage or retro collection. Overall, I feel like you can just really see the love and care and dedication that's gone into these guys, and they're definitely a set that's not only going to take pride of place in my collection, but without a doubt are going to be displayed right here on a shelf in my new studio.
So by now I've had the chance to have a proper look at them, and they're fire. They're absolutely fire. I love these things. You know when you feel like something was made just for you? That's very much what I feel like with these figures. There's quite a few things that I like about them, and mainly just how old school they feel. In an age where everything's being like remade and reproduced and we're getting so much retro toys, so many toys that are like a throwback to something that existed before, what I really like about these is that they feel old school. They feel like something you would have played with as a kid. They feel like something that you found in a time machine. Obviously there's little differences between these and 80s toys in terms of the material they're made from and the paints that they've used and stuff. Everything that's contemporary is always going to feel a little bit more contemporary than the old school stuff that we remember. And if you put them side by old toys, they're always going to feel a bit more new. I really like as well how they've got very limited articulation. Some toys come out, they have too much articulation, they don't feel old school to me. Like when it comes to these kinds of toys, they didn't really have a lot of articulation, they didn't have lots of joints on the elbows and things, and I just think that they work really well like this. I know that the original sculpts that they did, the ones that Scott Hensey did have a bit of like articulation on the elbow and stuff, and I'm glad that they didn't use that. I'm glad that they kept it this way because, yeah, I really do think that they're perfect the way that they are. I've also had people ask me like, how do they scale up to the Food Fighters? So I've got a few of the Food Fighters here so that you can see. Obviously some scale up better than others. If we look at Commodore Crisps, he stands nice next to an old Food Fighter. Very much looks like you could buy him and just display him with your Food Fighters if you just wanted to get one of the figures. Tech Sergeant Scotchy doesn't feel like a Food Fighter to me. His feet are much bigger. Standing next to a Food Fighter, he looks like a completely different toy in many ways. But if you have them all together, then they are still kind of compatible. But I also don't want people to just look at these figures and think that they are like supposed to be a throwback to the Food Fighters, because of course they're inspired by them in some ways. They're very much their own thing, and that's what I love about them. They've got a whole character of their own. I'm just a massive fan of this line. It's one that I'm really happy to support, and I'm so happy for Brandon to finally have them out in stores, because I know it's been such a long journey. I really do commend him. They're a fantastic line, and I can't wait to see him release the other ones.
So in terms of the other characters in this line and when they'll get released, I suppose that's all down to how well these sell. There's some really cool other characters that I'd love to see join the ranks of the ones on my shelf, and if you thought these were cool, I'm pretty sure that you're going to love the others too. They've all got really awesome names and ideas and backstories, and Brandon's done so much world building with them, and it's definitely an IP that I can see him doing so much more with. So I'll link the website for him down in the description below, as well as where you can buy them in the UK if you're like me, so that if you do want to grab some of these or find out more about them, all the information's there ready. So I really hope that you enjoyed this video today. I hope that if you hadn't heard of this line before, that I did a good job introducing you to them. And I also hope that if you did know about these figures and you was on the fence about whether to pick a setup or not, this helped twist your arm to get some, because I really want these to sell out so that we can get that next wave. If you did enjoy this video today, then please don't forget to give it a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and let me know down in the comments below what you think of the 9 to 5 Warriors. If you want to hit me up about anything but you don't want to comment down below publicly, the best place to do that is over on Instagram at Theo_Kane_Slimehouse. And if you want to help support this channel, help support future projects, out and about missions, and making this channel bigger and better than ever, I do also have a Patreon that I'll link down in the comments as well. On there you can get exclusive access to my Patreon only Discord thread, as well as other behind the scenes content as well, and it's one of the main sources of income that helps me keep these videos coming out every single week. So shouts to the Slime Renegades and the Slime Alliance every single time, because I really do appreciate you. So with all that being said, I'm going to love you and leave you. I'm Theo Kane, this is Slimehouse TV. As always, really hope you enjoyed this video today. Can't wait to catch you in the next one, because I've got some really awesome stuff to announce, and it's going to be very cool. So yeah, with all that being said, shouts to Brandon Braswell, big ups to 9 to 5 Warriors. I love these figures, go support that. You have an awesome weekend. I'm gone. Pow.